I am going to be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. Remember that. If I get elected president, we will make America great again. The weakest person on the stage by far is Jeb Bush.
You want to talk about weakness? It's weak to disparage women. It's weak to disparage Hispanics.
Donald has this weird pattern. When you point to his own record, he screams, liar, liar, liar.
This guy will say anything. This guy lied about Ben Carson when he took votes away from Ben Carson in Iowa.
Building a hotel overseas is not foreign policy experience.
Every guy that attacks me so far, they've all gone down. We got to keep it that way, right?
MSNBC presents an exclusive town hall with Donald Trump. Here now are Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski.
Good evening and welcome to an exclusive MSNBC town hall event. We are here in Charleston, South Carolina, where in just 3 days, the voters of this state in the first in the South primary will choose who they want to be the Republican nominee for president.
Well, Mika, this is about as big as it gets. New Hampshire was big. This is going to determine so much.
Well, tonight we sit with the front runner in that Republican race who, despite a debate performance that some analysts, including us, called disastrous,
I thought it was terrible.
Is still a strong favorite.
I thought it was terrible.
I thought his head was going to explode. Seriously,
well,
I thought it was horrible.
Surprised.
But he's a favorite here in the Palmetto State. Joining us now, the Republican presidential candidate, Donald Trump.
Great to see you, Donald.
Good to have you.
I thought I did great in that debate. I actually thought I had a great...
I just didn't think it was good. I was like, what is going on?
A meltdown.
What is going on?
I thought it was good. I mean, I was being hit from every side. It was tough. I mean, you said I was too tough, but I thought I had to be tough. I thought I did well.
Let's start with this question now that, as we said this morning on the show, if you look at a lot of the polls, a lot of people are starting to say you could be the Republican nominee. So we need to step back and ask a lot of questions, a lot of questions about your general philosophy. Why is it that you feel it's necessary to attack Jeb Bush, to attack John McCain, to attack all these people?
Well, I don't attack John McCain, actually. I do attack people when I'm attacked. I don't care too much about Jeb, except he spent $22 million on negative ads. I mean, every time I turn on a television, I see a negative ad. He's got money from all of the different, donors and special interests and lobbyists, and they put a lot of negative ads, and that's Jeb, more so than anybody else. So I hit Jeb because he's sort of easy to hit, to be honest with you. If he weren't doing the negative ads, I wouldn't even be talking about Jeb, to be honest with you. Now, Ted, we go back and forth. But Ted, what he did to Ben Carson, I thought was disgraceful in Iowa, where he said he was out of the race. Essentially, he said he was out of the race, and this race is over. Come with me, come with me. I thought that was bad. I thought the voter violation fraud document that he did I thought it was horrendous. And he's told lies. I mean, he tells lies. In fact, Rubio, he came out and he accused Ted of being a liar. Right. And I said, oh, good, that's good, because now I can do it also. This is perfect.
So let's go over some polls, and we'll follow up with some of these questions. There's a brand new Monmouth University poll out. It actually finds you with a 16-point lead in South Carolina, 35% to Cruz's 19%, to Marco at 17. A new Bloomberg Politics South Carolina poll that was just released tonight puts you ahead of Ted Cruz, 36 to 17%, with Rubio again in third place at 15%. However, a new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll that was taken after Saturday night's debate. It's a national poll showing Ted Cruz with a slim 2-point margin, 28 to 26%, with Marco Rubio in third at 17.
Are things closing in here in South Carolina?
Well, I think most of these polls were taken after the debate, and, the debate worked out good for me, and it was taken after the debate. I have never done well in the Wall Street Journal poll. I think somebody at Wall Street Journal doesn't like me, but I never do well with the Wall Street Journal poll. So, I don't know. They do these small samples, and I don't know exactly what it represents, but I am really honored by those poll results. Those are great poll results overall.
Today, Ted Cruz came out and attacked you and said that you were the king of frivolous lawsuits. And Mika, what exactly did he say?
He says, I have to say, Mr. Trump, you have been threatening frivolous lawsuits your entire life. Even in the annals of frivolous lawsuits, this takes the cake.
Well, look, I've had great success in business. I've had great success with lawsuits. I've had great success in things I do. And I don't know that we're going to have a lawsuit, but we certainly want to keep somebody honest. And, when he makes statements about, like, as an example, I'm pro-life, and he said he's not pro-life. You can't say that. It's like saying
But
your opponents
would say, though, you haven't always been pro-life.
No, that's true. And so Ronald Reagan, likewise.
Right. So what happened? When did that change come?
It changed years ago, and what happened is I saw things with people and people that I know and people that I respect that it made me change. Ronald Reagan changed. If you look at, he said he evolved. He used that expression. Right. Ronald Reagan actually used to be a fairly liberal Democrat, and he became a fairly conservative. I mean, fairly.
But Ted Cruz says we can't count on Donald Trump in the future, especially in picking Supreme Court justices if he's changed in the past. So how do you convince a Republican like me that if you were nominated, you're not going to nominate the type of Supreme Court justice that always seems to flip?
Okay. So if you look at me as a conservative, okay, and I'm not sure that that's necessarily the most important word, but I say I'm a common sense conservative. I'm the most conservative on the border. And nobody tougher than me on the border. In fact, Sheriff Joe just endorsed me from Arizona, and when he endorses you, you're pretty conservative, you're pretty good on the border. I think I'm the strongest on the military, most conservative on the military, strongest on the military, the best with the vets. I have more veteran support than anybody else by far. We're going to get rid of Common Core. I'm very conservative on that issue. Common Core is going. We're going to have local education. It's going to be much better, much less expensive. On the Second Amendment, I am absolutely the strongest in the group.
So let me stop you there. The Second Amendment, very important in this state. Heller, the decision that the Supreme Court passed that are decided on, actually found out that the Second Amendment.
A conservative, okay, and I'm not sure that that's necessarily the most important word, but I say I'm a common sense conservative. I'm the most conservative on the border. And nobody tougher than me on the border. In fact, Sheriff Joe just endorsed me from Arizona, and when he endorses you, you're pretty conservative, you're pretty good on the border. I think I'm the strongest on the military, most conservative on the military, strongest on the military, the best with the vets. I have more veteran support than anybody else by far. We're going to get rid of Common Core. I'm very conservative on that issue. Common Core is going. We're going to have local education. It's going to be much better, much less expensive. On the Second Amendment, I am absolutely the strongest in the group.
So let me stop you there. The Second Amendment, very important in this state. Heller, the decision that the Supreme Court passed that are decided on, actually found out that the Second Amendment, ruled that the Second Amendment meant what a lot of people have long believed that it meant, that Americans have a right to keep and bear arms. Right. Will you make upholding the Heller decision a litmus test in Supreme Court nominees that you send?
Yes, I would. And I talk about it all the time.
So you won't nominate somebody to the Supreme Court unless they agree with Scalia on the Heller decision.
Correct.
That the Second Amendment means Americans have the right to keep and bear arms.
I give that commitment right now, absolutely. And I've been very strong. I'm a member of the NRA. My sons, Don and Eric, are members of the NRA for a long time. They're hunters. They're great members of the NRA. If you take California, if in California we had somebody having guns on the other side, we had the two radicalized people, and if we had guns on the other side, bullets coming the other way, you wouldn't have had the 14 people killed. I mean, the best example, it's not this country. Paris has the toughest gun laws in the world, they say. France has the toughest gun laws as a country, they say. If you take France and all the bad guys have the guns, nobody had guns in the room, they sent into the various rooms people, 130 people killed. It was like, come on over here, boom. Come on over here, boom. If people on the other side had guns, Joe, it wouldn't have been that way. And you have people really seriously wounded. You're going to lose many more people in Paris. But you look at it, if they had guns on the other side with the bullets flying the other way, and I have this argument with people all the time from New York, because a lot of New York, they say, get rid of the guns. The fact is, they can't argue. They can't beat me in the argument. It's impossible to beat. And then the next day I'll say, so did I convince you? They always say no. they always say no.
So we're going to get deeper into your policy positions coming up. I want to get a sense of the state of the race, though, as we move on here. President Obama even talked about you, saying, I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president. And the reason is I have a lot of faith in the American people. And I think they recognize that being president is a serious job. It's not hosting a talk show or a reality show. It's not promotion. It's not marketing. It's hard. The sitting president, Mr. Trump, thinks your candidacy is an aberration or a joke.
I don't think he does at all. I tell you what, if I would have run 4 years ago, he wouldn't be president right now. I don't think he thinks it at all. You know, it's very interesting. It's very interesting with President Obama. Going to go down to one of the worst presidents in the history of this country. He has been a disaster on the military. You look at we can't beat ISIS. He's been a disaster on health care because Obama's got to be repealed and replaced. And I'm just talking about, not even from my standpoint, rates are going up, your premiums are going up. 25, 35, 45, 55%. People are getting killed.
So you're going to
repeal and replace.
What do you replace it with?
Health care, savings plans, one way. We have to get rid of the lines between states. I do tremendous health care. I have so many employees. I have thousands of employees. I've employed tens of thousands of people. I built an unbelievable business. And one thing that has come out when I filed the documents with the FEC in terms of my business, I built an unbelievable business. So I have tremendous numbers of people. Joe, we have to get rid of the lines. We have artificial lines.
So you're talking about letting people shop from one state to another.
We have to.
Sure. So let me ask you this, though. There is a guarantee now that all Americans get health care. This has been, in New Hampshire, it was supposed to be a big problem for you. Are you going to guarantee all Americans health care?
Joe, Americans aren't getting health care right now.
But that's just what I'm asking you. Just like you've guaranteed what you've guaranteed on the Second Amendment, this has been a fight within the Republican Party and what it means to be conservative.
Sure.
But you have constantly said, even in New Hampshire, the live free or die state, that every American should get health care.
Let me
Is
tell
that
you,
your
that's
position?
not what I said. That's not what I said. Here's what I said. We're going to have great plans. They're going to be much less expensive and they're going to be much better because the Obama plan is unaffordable and it's a disaster. And by the way, in 17, it's going to die because unless the Republicans continue to fund money it's not affordable by the country, not affordable by people. But what I say is this: we're going to have great plans, but there will be a group of people that is not doing well, that has no money. We cannot let them die in the streets.
Right.
And we'll work out either through Medicare, which will save, or something. We will work out a plan where instead of having people dying in the streets, and I say to the Republicans all the time, and by the way, I get standing ovations from Republicans, from Republican groups. I got one yesterday. I said, we can't let people die in the streets. We got to work out a deal with a hospital or with somebody in that community where if somebody is sick and really sick and they don't have housing and they don't have we can't let them die.
So all Americans will get health care of some sort.
We're going to take care of them. We have to take care of them. Now, that's not single payer. That's not anything. That's just human decency. And I'll tell you what, every single time I say that, I say to people in the audience, I say, so what do you think? They all stand up and give me a standing ovation, okay?
All right.
So some people will take that and they'll say, oh, that's terrible, that's terrible. What we're going to have is we're going to have private plans. We're going to have maybe the health care savings plans, which are very good. We're going to get rid of the lines. You know what happens when you get rid of the lines? You have tremendous competition and the price goes way down. The reason the lines are there is because the insurance companies are making a fortune having monopolies in the various states.
All right, so we're going to get back to that. We're going to ask how you pay for that and a lot of other things, but we need to go to break.
We're just getting started here in Charleston. When we come back, we're going to be asking Donald Trump about how he would handle the FBI's request to break into one of the San Bernardino shooters' iPhones. You're watching an exclusive town hall with Donald Trump here on MSNBC. Town hall with Donald Trump. We're going to focus on foreign policy. Harkening back to that debate performance, though, Jeb Bush was attacking you, and you were attacking back, and you started talking about faulty intelligence and 9/11, and then the war in Iraq, and I thought, my God, he's speaking to me. I don't disagree with this.
That's not a good thing in a Republican primary. That's a very bad thing in a Republican primary.
I'm really speaking to the American people. Look, Jeb brought his brother in to help him. He brought his mom in and he brought his brother in. Okay, I don't know who else he's going to bring in, but he needs help. And he brought his brother in. And once he brought his like 4 weeks ago, Hillary brought in Bill. And I hit them because I thought it was appropriate to hit them because once they're in, now the brother came in. So when Jeb at the Reagan Museum came out and he said very strongly, my brother protected us and he protected us, And he meant he protected us after the World Trade Center came down. They forgot one thing. What about during when the World Trade Center came down?
So I guess this is the Republican in me, but how can you blame George W. Bush
I'm not blaming
for the 9/11 attacks?
I'm not blaming anybody, but if you go back and you'll see the CIA and the NSA and all of the other groups, they were not getting together, Joe. They were not doing well. They hated each other. The top people hated each other. They weren't talking. They had a lot of intelligence. They knew something bad was going to happen. I'm not blaming anybody.
Right.
You were the one that pointed out 2 years before the World Trade Center came down, I, in my book, was talking about Osama bin Laden. And I'm not a politician. I wasn't a politician. So if I know about Osama bin Laden, why didn't the government know about it?
It just seems like an approach a Democrat would take against a
I don't think
Republican
it's
candidate.
No, I'm not doing it for that reason. Although I will say you this, I will tell you that I will have more crossover votes if I get the nomination. I will have more crossover votes than anybody that's ever run for office. I will have Democrat votes. I will have independent votes. I will do tremendously with crossover. And one other thing, I will have states that nobody ever thought of getting in terms of a Republican. I think I have a chance of New York. I think I have a great chance of Michigan. States that are not in your 6 states that we always talk about, with the Ohio that sort of, you can get. I'll definitely get Pennsylvania. I'll get Ohio. I think I'm going to win Florida. You see how I'm doing in Florida. But I'll get states like a Michigan and a New York.
But the USA Today this morning, the headline was that 38% of Americans are scared of you getting the presidency. Of course, something like 34% were scared of Hillary. So the numbers are up there high.
By the way,
that's a lot of people.
All of the top candidates had the highest numbers.
So how do you bring that number down?
I think I bring it down. You saw me bring it down. I brought it down. Remember how high that number was 6 or 7 months ago, and everybody was amazed how I brought it back down. That just comes down.
Okay. I need to follow up on the 9/11 comment, though, because I don't know if it's the same book, but we talked about it this morning on the show. In 2000, you also said that you thought that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. What happened between 2000 when you wrote that?
We were told they had weapons of mass destruction, but he didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Now, the only question is, did the government know he didn't? I mean, why did they go in? Look, Iraq did not knock down, and the Iraqis did not knock down the World Trade Center. Okay? So we attacked Iraq, but they didn't knock down the World Trade Center. We attacked them for a reason. They didn't knock down the World Trade Center.
Did you believe in 2003 in March when we went to war that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction?
I didn't know. If you would have watched, you would have probably thought they did, but I didn't know. But the government should have known, and they didn't have. And we attacked a country and destabilized the entire Middle East.
Right.
Look,
so a lot of people obviously are sorting through this. So help us sort through this. So you said that there are comments that you've made before we went to war. Nobody can find those. I've seen two comments right after we went to war.
I'm a real estate person. I'm a business person. Right. Nobody cared about my comments. In 2003, you saw comments. I was against the war.
So 2004. But hold on. This is what I want to talk about. In 2003, you said two things. I believe a couple of days after, you were quoted saying it was going to be a disaster. But you also said in another quote right after we went in that it would be great for the stock market. Are those?
Well, I'm not saying it's great for the stock market. Doesn't mean do it. Look, I said the war is a disaster because you're going to destabilize the Middle East. I said it long before 2003, but I'm not a politician. I'm not saying it as a. Now I say things as I guess I'm a politician.
So what does that mean going forward?
No. Let me tell you what it means. It means the following. Somebody had vision. I'm the only one that said don't go in. And I said it 2003. I said it 2004. Now, a couple of people in your world said, you know what? We don't have any evidence that he said it before, which I did, but I said it to people. It doesn't mean they're going to put it in the newspapers as a business person. But they said he really said it right after the war started, that and there's plenty of proof of that. There's headlines in magazines, don't go into the war, you're going to destabilize the Middle East. And I said, Iran will take over Iraq. Iran will get the oil. I said all of these things, and on top of it, nobody knew about ISIS, but on top of it, I said the worst, meanest group of people, and the people that hate us the most, they're going to do the best. That turns out to be ISIS. I also said,
so where did you say this?
I said it all over the place. It's written all over the place, Joe. 2003, 2004, headlines and articles. Look, nobody's questioning about my being against the war. What they are saying is, well, he was a little bit after the war. A couple of people in your world said that's okay because he was very early on, he was against.
Can you share with us 3 people who you would consult with or want to hear from on foreign policy?
I would say that I'd rather not because I'm going to be announcing a team in about a week that is really a good team and a team that was recommended highly to me. And And a team that I've seen both and read about both in papers and seen on your show and other people, but we're announcing a team in about a week, and I'm going to keep it a little bit secret.
Okay, so we want to go to questions in the audience, but before we get off of national security, I've just got to ask you this question.
Go ahead.
Nobody around our table understood this morning why Apple would not help the government in cracking into the phone, the iPhone of one of the two terrorists in San Bernardino. First of all, do you think Apple is in the wrong?
Yes.
And secondly, if you are President Donald Trump, what do you do as far as changing laws to make technology
or to deal with this situation?
Tech companies comply with the needs of the government?
I think it's disgraceful that Apple is not helping on that. I think security first, and I always felt security first. Apple should absolutely, we should force them to do it. We should do whatever we have to do. And I guess he wants to be a good liberal and he doesn't want to give the information. But we, on that, as an example, those two people killed 14 people. There were other people that saw the bombs laying all over the floor. This wasn't like a normal apartment. You had bombs laying all over the floor. You had all sorts of ammunition. You had all sorts of everything in that apartment. People knew that. I'd like to know who else knew it, because they're almost as guilty and maybe just as guilty. I think you have to be able to crack that, and I think Apple is absolutely in the wrong.
Okay, we're going to take questions from the audience. The first one is from Monique. She's actually a Democrat, but Democrats can vote in the South Carolina primary.
Okay, that's true.
Monique.
Mr. Trump,
Hi.
My husband and I, we are Democrats. We are also successful food entrepreneurs. A lot of the principles we use are directly from your teachings, the books we've read. So in the current administration, African Americans have felt as though they can do anything, be anything. If you're elected, how will you relate to the African American community, minority business owners, small businesses? Do you have a plan?
Yes, I do indeed. So I have to say we have right now an African-American president, and if you look at unemployment with African-American youth, Monique, it's 58%, 59%, probably even higher than that. If you take African-Americans who I have friends that are having a hard time getting a job in prime age, 30, 40, 45, even 50, their numbers are not comparable to what white men or women in business are. It's not good. You understand that.
Yes.
We have had an African-American president now for 7 years, going on 8 years. He has done so little in terms of economics and in terms of really getting youth taken care of, because I see all the riots, I see all the problems, you see nothing but problems. Barack Obama has done nothing, absolutely, in my opinion, nothing economically for African Americans, especially youth, but for African Americans generally. We're going to bring back our jobs. We're bringing them back from China. We're bringing them back from all over Asia. We're bringing them back from Mexico.
But what would you do? You talk about this a lot. I understand that. That certainly helps the corporations. But what about entrepreneurs? What are you going to do specifically to help the small business owners like Monique?
Well, look, number one, we have to get rid of rules, regulations, that you have regulations that are so bad now. I have friends that have small business, and this is whether it's African-American or not, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. The rules and regulations, the regulations of companies today are so outrageous that they cannot compete with companies, similar companies in China, Asia, other places. They can't compete. So the regulations are going to be gone. We're going to give incentives. We're also doing major tax cuts because small businesses are paying taxes that are far too much, and you're paying a lot of tax. Well, I guess you're making money. Are you making money? You read my book, so you should be making money.
Oh, my God.
I mean, I would hope.
Is that it? Here we go. All right, hold on.
No, I want 10%.
We're going to go to commercial before you just stop on yours.
We are going to get more of your
Big
questions coming up.
Yeah, a lot more questions from the audience coming back.
When we come back, we'll take some more questions from Donald Trump and from the audience. The questions were gathered here in South Carolina. You're watching an exclusive town hall with Donald Trump right here on MSNBC.
On the U.S. troops stationed in their country for protection.
Oh, I talk about it all the time, Barbara. We have so many countries, South Korea. You know, I order thousands of television sets a year for different projects, and they're all made in South Korea, other than Sony, which is Japan. But, I mean, for the most, LG, Samsung. It's such a great question because these countries are making a fortune. And we take care of Saudi Arabia. We take care of Japan. We take care of Germany. We have, when you look at our budget for military, it's 10 times higher. It's so much bigger than anybody else in the world. But what do? We take care of all these other countries. The question is such a great question. I talk about it, and I just can't even understand. Saudi Arabia was making $1 billion a day prior to the oil collapse. So now they're making half. Okay, they're making plenty. And yet we take care of them. They pay us peanuts.
Should we force Germany and Japan to start carrying their load, build up their own military, and start funding their own defense instead of the United States?
Joe, at a minimum, I think it's fine what we're doing, but they have to at least pay us for it. They have to pay us so we don't lose tremendous amounts of money.
If you go in and fight, have our country lead the war against ISIS,
right,
as you said you're going to do, will you do what Bush 41 did and force countries like Japan to write checks?
I would do that, and I would want other countries. The Gulf states, if you look, the Gulf states aren't doing anything, and they're big beneficiaries, and they have more money than anybody else. We have $19 trillion in debt. It's going to be $21 trillion because of the horrible budget that was just passed 4 weeks ago, which is shocking that they did that. So we're going to have $21 trillion in debt. We can't keep doing this. And if we're taking care of Saudi Arabia, they're going to have to pay us. And if we're taking care of South Korea, which makes a fortune, it's an economic behemoth, right, and we have the madman right next to him, and we have 28,000 soldiers on the line, we're going to have to do something.
I'm going to ask you, I know we've got to go to the studio audience. I wish we had 3 hours. We don't. So I've got to dig into a couple things you've said here really quickly.
Go ahead.
First of all, you talk about the $19 trillion national debt. If I listen to the people I've been listening to for years on these issues, they tell me that your policies would add another $10, $11 trillion to the national debt.
They're wrong. They're wrong.
How are they wrong?
All they're saying is my policies, I'm going to reduce taxes, okay? And the taxes is going to bring jobs back, and we're going to bring jobs back into the country, big league, and we're going to have a dynamic economy again. Do you know last quarter...
But are you going to cut spending, too?
Joe, we have no growth.
Are you going to cut spending?
I'm going to cut spending. We're going to cut spending big league. You look at so many... Department of Education. We're going to cut Department of Education. We spend more money per pupil than any country in the world by far, and we're ranked number 30 in the world. You have all of these countries, whether it's... What?
Bless you.
Oh, I thought she sneezed.
Yeah, it wasn't a protester.
You're so used to protesters. Somebody sneezes and you're ready to throw them out.
The camera's going to go over there and show what a big crowd I have. That's the only way they show the big crowd. That was a healthy sneeze. She's a healthy person.
Yes.
But you look at we're number 30 in the world. Department of Education cuts because I said we're going to bring education back.
That won't balance the budget.
But
you've got to look at entitlements though too. Do you not?
What we're going to do more than anything else, we're going to cut tremendous amounts of money. Let me give you an example. Drug companies. Now, you take somebody like Woody Johnson, good guy, Johnson & Johnson. These people are in charge of, meaning Woody, is in charge of Jeb Bush's campaign finance, okay? He's the head of campaign financing. Jeb Bush raised $148 million, total waste of money. You might as well throw it out the window. Wouldn't it have been nice if instead of running a failed campaign, he gave it to the wounded warriors or gave it to somebody? But the problem is we don't negotiate with the largest drug producer and with the largest drug buyer in the world. We don't negotiate. We don't negotiate. You pay practically the same for the country as if you go into a drugstore and buy the drugs. If we negotiated the price of drugs, Joe, we'd save $300 billion a year. Okay. Now, these candidates, I self-fund, I'm going to do it. These candidates are all controlled by the drug companies, the lumber companies. They're never going to do that. They're never going to do it. There's tremendous fat, Joe. Okay. There's tremendous fat in our budgets. Tremendous fats. Beyond belief. But the candidates are all controlled by the people that make money off the fat. Really quickly,
and I know I've got to go to the audience, but entitlement reform, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid combined are going to consume every dime that goes to Washington, D.C.
Fraud, and abuse.
Well, that's not going to take care of it by itself.
It's a huge number. Waste, fraud. People have
What about raising the retirement age?
Hey, Joe, I'm not going to
People are living older than they ever have.
I'm not doing it. Let me just say, waste, fraud, and abuse is massive in Social Security,
so
Medicare,
why aren't you
Medicaid.
why wouldn't you raise the retirement age if Americans are getting
Because
older
people didn't
and
make
are living longer and longer?
I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Two reasons. Number one, I don't want to do it. And number two, the Democrats aren't going to do it. You know, the Republicans also have to get elected. You do know that. And if you watch Bernie and if you watch Hillary, they don't want to only not cut, they want to increase Social Security. Right. Now, I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm just saying this. We don't have to do it. We're going to make our economy strong. We're going to make our economy rich, and we're not going to have to.
You know, tonight, I know, Mika, why we have a 3-hour program.
Yeah,
there's not enough time to follow up.
The two of you.
But we have.
Right.
This is Kevin McCarthy. Not that Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, exactly.
But Kevin McCarthy.
Talk about a lot. Some of these trade agreements like NAFTA and others have been very destructive for the working class. My question is, what specific steps would you take to help renegotiate those deals or help protect American jobs?
Our trade agreements are a disaster, partially because, again, contributions to the various people that run things, like the senators, etc. TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, is a disaster because they don't talk about monetary manipulation and devaluation. They don't talk about it. The number one way that countries are killing us is with devaluations of their currencies. And our companies can't compete. You take a look at what's happening in Japan with the devaluation of the yen. Just look at this. Caterpillar is having such a hard time competing with Komatsu, which is a big tractor maker from Japan. A friend of mine bought all Komatsu. All his life he's bought Caterpillar, big contractor, a big contractor. He bought his whole life, he bought Caterpillar. Now he's buying Komatsu. Not because he wants to. He said they devalued the yen to such an extent that it's absolutely impossible to compete. So he bought it, and he's very unhappy about it. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a disaster, and it shouldn't be signed. The NAFTA agreements and trade agreements that we have generally will be fully renegotiated by me. We have right now a deficit with Mexico, a trade deficit of $58 billion with Mexico. We have a $500 billion deficit with China. Can't have this. We will renegotiate. You know, Carl Icahn came out, he endorsed me, he said Trump is the one that knows what the hell's going on. We have another problem. We have corporate inversions where you have companies that are leaving our country now. That's a big problem.
It is a big problem. Let's talk about China, though, for a second. You've talked before about slapping tariffs 45% on China if that's what it took. But wouldn't...
It's not actually what I said. The New York Times said I said that. But honestly, I was at a meeting with the New York Times. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said it is a threat that I would use against China.
Okay.
For instance, China can solve
do you understand, though, that if we get into a trade war with China, that could hurt a lot of working-class Americans who depend on cheap products from China to be able to get by?
It's going to hurt China more than it's going to hurt anybody. We have all the keys. We have all the power. Look, China has... Absolutely, it's been one of the great thefts of all time, what they've done to the United States. And I have great relationships. I sell condos for tens of millions of dollars to Chinese. I have the largest bank in the world, which is from China, is my tenant in one of my buildings in Manhattan. I bought a building. I have a building through China, the Bank of America building in San Francisco. Right. I mean, I do a lot of business with China.
They're pulling me to break. I want to ask you something, though, because before we go to break...
We can't let China continue to get away with what they're doing to our country.
So are you talking about, with China, whether we're talking about tariffs, are you talking about more threats?
It's a threat.
Action?
No, it's a threat, but you have to be able to put it in place. What China has done to us with devaluation of the currency is unbelievable. And nobody thought they were going to do it again. And then 4 months ago, they had the largest devaluation that they've had in 20 years. The largest in 20 years. Now they're going to do it again. Our companies can't compete. They are devaluing their currencies. Our company can't compete.
All right, we're going to take a break. They are just days away from heading to the polls here in South Carolina. And nearly half of voters have yet to make up their minds. When we return, we're going to hear more questions from the audience, and we'll dig into Donald Trump's economic plan to see if the numbers add up. You're watching our exclusive town hall with Donald Trump right here on MSNBC.
Any kind to make. It has been going on for many years. Many friends of mine have been involved. They're very, very good businessmen, very good negotiators. A lot of people say an agreement can't be made, which is okay. I mean, sometimes agreements can't be made, not good. But, you know, you have both sides, really, but you have one side in particular growing up and learning that these are the worst people, these people are the worst people, et cetera, et cetera. It is a very, very tough agreement to make. I was with a very prominent Israeli the other day. He said it's impossible because the other side has been trained from the time they're children to hate Jewish people. But I will give it one hell of a shot, that I can tell you. But of all agreements, I always said, if you can do that deal, you can do any deal. But that's probably the toughest deal in the world right now to make. And it's possible it's not makeable because, don't forget, it has to last. You know, it's wonderful to make it and it doesn't work, but it has to last. To make lasting peace there, probably the toughest deal of all, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Whose fault do you think it is that there hasn't been peace?
You know, I don't want to get into
Israelis or
it.
the Palestinians?
I don't want to get into it for a different reason, Joe, because if I do win, you know, there has to be a certain amount of surprise, unpredictability. Our country has no unpredictability. If I win, I don't want to be in a position where I'm saying to you and the other side now say, we don't want Trump involved. We don't want. Let me be sort of a neutral guy. Let's see what. I'm going to give it a shot. It would be so great. I would be so proud if I could do that. I don't know if it's doable. I have friends of mine that are tremendous business people that are really great negotiators. They say it's not doable. You understand a lot of people have gone down in flames trying to make that deal. So I don't want to say whose fault is it. I don't think it helps.
All right. We're going to take a question now from Stephanie Brummett. She's an independent. Stephanie.
Hi, Mr. Trump. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
My question is in regard to political civility. So we have, I think you've been really successful in tapping into the kind of voter who wants a politician to tell it like it is, wants a politician to be honest. And so I think you've done a successful job of tapping into that passion. My question is, where do you think the line is between boldness and honesty and disrespect and rudeness? And does that line change for President Trump and President Trump?
I know, but it's, you know, a lot of, I'll give you an example. One of the speeches, we're having a great time. I never said the word. I went like, I opened my mouth, and they go, all of your networks go, beep, and they thought I said this terrible word. I didn't say the word. That was a real bad word. I didn't say it at all. And the place
But you whispered it, Donna.
I never whispered it.
You whispered the word.
The other one, I actually, you know, you can give me a negative credit on this one. I actually repeated a word. I said, I didn't say this word, I didn't say this word, and then I repeated it.
You called that a retweet.
Okay, but hold on a second. Let's talk, though, about civility, though, towards other people, because you like hammering other people. As a politician, I always had a rule. You couldn't be at war with more than one person at a time. Your rule seems to be you have to be at war with at least a dozen people at a time. What happens if you're president of the United States and you look at Barack Obama? One of his problems, biggest problems, people on the Hill, Democrats and Republicans will say, is that he doesn't have friends on the Hill.
He doesn't have friends.
Okay, but are you going to have friends on the Hill?
Yeah. I started out, I was one of 17 people, and we're not including the Democrats. It was coming at me from every which way. I was very strong and very bold, and I hit a lot of people. I knocked out Lindsey Graham. I knocked out Perry. I knocked out a lot of people. Walker. We knocked out a lot of people.
You're still hammering people.
And now I have to, because I still have six left.
But if you knock everybody else out and you're president of the United States, then you have to deal with 535 people that are going to be hammering you every day.
The problem, I have a great temperament.
I have a great temperament.
I think my biggest strength is...
Jeb Bush would disagree.
Jeb Bush... Look,
Lindsey Graham would disagree.
Jeb is a sad case, okay? It's sad.
See, there you go again.
I'm just telling you.
There you go again.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's a very sad thing. I said he's a low-energy person. Look,
you walked right into
in a year from now, people will respect what I did. I had Lindsey Graham. He was at 7%. After I hit him, he was at nothing, and he left the race. Now he's an angry person. I see him on television saying things. It's like, I mean, he's like an insane person. But you
again,
Joe, we have to win. Our country doesn't win anymore. You're so worried about being nice and being politically correct. So what would you rather have me do? Be nice to everybody, and now instead of all those people getting out there still hammering me, you get out. You have to win.
It's not
Our
what I
country's
want.
not winning.
It's not what she wants. The question is, do you have the temperament to deal day in and day out with 535 people?
Finger on the button. Okay, finger on the button. Right.
During the debate, I was thinking, should this guy have the finger on the button?
No, during the debate, I was being hit by the announcers, John Dickerson. I was being hit. You know, everybody was really being sort of culled to go after Trump.
But you're going to get hit by world leaders.
They were asking, your brother was told to do this or this by Donald Trump, and they have to respond. I was being hit by everybody. Finger on the button. I'm the only one that said, don't go into Iraq. So don't tell me about finger on the button. I want to build our military so strong, so powerful that nobody's going to mess with us.
So what does that mean? Is that more money, too?
No, it's more money, but it's cheap compared to what we're doing right now. Nobody respects us right now. They don't respect us.
But are you talking about bigger defense budgets? Because right now we're already spending.
No, I'm talking about better negotiated defense budgets. Do you know that we're buying equipment that the generals and the colonels and the people in the field don't want because these companies have political contacts? So much of it has to do with the fact that I'm self-funding my campaign. I can do whatever I want. We're buying equipment that we don't even want because certain companies have better political skills. And you see it all the time. They're getting a plane. They don't want it. They want the other one, or they could have gotten it cheaper, but they get this one because we are going to have a better, stronger military, and we're going to watch it so much. We will save so much money. Joe, there is so much corruption. There is so much waste and abuse in the military and elsewhere. But we're going to build our military strong. It's the cheapest thing we can do.
All right.
Nobody's going to mess.
When we come back, our final questions and thoughts here. You're watching a special edition, an exclusive MSNBC town hall with Donald Trump from Charleston, South Carolina. In Charleston, South Carolina, we have a few final moments with Mr. Trump. I wanted to describe a candidate to you. The candidate is considered a political outsider by all the pundits. He's tapping into the anger of the voters, delivers a populist message. He believes everyone in the country should have health care. He advocates for hedge fund managers to pay higher taxes. He's drawing thousands of people at his rallies and bringing in a lot of new voters to the political process. And he's not beholden to any super PAC. Who am I describing?
Or any special interests or any donors. You're describing Donald Trump.
Actually, I was describing Bernie Sanders.
Well, that's good.
Isn't that something?
I'll tell you, we're
There
different in one primary. I'll tell you, there's one thing that we're very similar on. He knows that our country is being ripped off, big league on trade. The problem is he can't do anything about it. He's not going to be able to do, whereas I'm going to do things. Because he doesn't understand it. I mean, he doesn't understand what's happening. But he does know that China and these other countries are ripping us off. Mexico, you see Carrier moving down. They're moving down to Mexico. Nabisco is moving. The whole thing is crazy what's going on with Mexico. He does understand that much more so than many people. But he'll never be able to do anything.
Would you rather run against Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton?
Well, it's a great question. I think I'd rather run against Hillary just because I'd love to beat Hillary. I think I can beat Hillary so easily. But honestly, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty good with the legal stuff, and I don't know how she gets out of that quagmire of the emails.
Do you think she'll be indicted?
I think maybe she will, but I think if she isn't indicted, the only reason is because the Democrats are protecting her. She's being protected 100%. Because you look at General Petraeus, you look at all the other people that did a fraction of what she did.
Would you ever consider, speaking of General Petraeus, would you ever consider General Petraeus possibly as a vice presidential candidate if you won the nomination?
We can't now. He's been so badly hurt. He's been so...
What about a general?
Horribly. Well, look, he did a nice job, but he had bad judgment. But she has much worse judgment than he had, and she's getting away with it. It's unfair to him. And by the way, I came out. They want to take away further rank. And I was, for the last month and a half, I was saying, leave General Petraeus alone. He suffered enough. Leave him alone. Right. And now I said, go get ISIS. Don't get General Petraeus.
You've said you're going to build a beautiful wall, and Mexico is going to pay for it.
Right.
But you never say how.
So easy.
You say, believe me,
so
they are.
Easy.
Believe me is not an answer.
Believe me.
How?
Let me tell you.
How are you going to make
Can I tell you? Can I tell you? You have to stop, and I'll tell you. Right. We're going to have a trade deficit this year, $58 billion, okay? The wall's going to cost a fraction of that, maybe $10 or $12 billion, and it's going to be a real wall. It's going to be a high wall. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a wall that works.
How do you get Mexico to pay for it?
Very simple. You have 5 different ways. Number one, here's the key. They are making... Right? If you look at it, a company, $58 billion. The wall is a year. We have a trade deficit with Mexico of $58 billion. All I have to do is start playing with that trade deficit, and believe me, they're going to pay for the wall.
You're talking about a possible trade war with Mexico?
I'm talking about negotiating with them. I'm not talking about trade war with them. I'm talking about Japan. We have all the cards, Joe. I was in Los Angeles. I see these massive ships coming in with cars. We have all the cards. We don't play them. We don't have the politicians that know how to play them. We're negotiating against great negotiators. China, Mexico, Japan, believe me, we're going to start doing great with that trade. And that's the thing. Bernie Sanders can't do it. The bottom line is, I think he would be easier to beat than Hillary. Because I always wanted to run against a socialist in this country. I can't imagine it.
So
but I think it'd be easier
let's get some final questions from our audience. Rebecca is a Republican. Rebecca, take it away.
Hi, Mr. Trump. I'm a college student, so education is really important to me. And I was just wondering, since there's so much going on right now in the rest of the campaign, I was just wondering how you are going to, what are your thoughts on Bernie's higher education plan and how he's going to reduce the cost?
Thank you. It's a very good question. The problem with Bernie's plan is everyone's going to pay 95% taxes. I mean, you have that and you have all the other things that he wants to do.
So then let's talk about
you're going to have a tax
then.
rate of 95%.
So how do we reduce the costs for colleges? It's insane. The inflation for higher education
you know why?
Is absolutely insane.
Because the students are a conduit to get all this money to the colleges. The colleges have gone crazy. You look at the fees they're paying. You look at the kind of numbers that the administrators make. Colleges have gone up practically more than anyone because the students, they're the real losers in this thing. They go borrow the money from the government, and the colleges charge more and more and more, disproportionately more. They have to bring down their costs. We have to help the students, Joe, because what the colleges have done, their costs have gone up more than anything because the government basically gives them the money to do that through the students. But the students have to pay back the money. It's not fair to the students.
All right.
Okay. We got Hiral now who has a question. He's a Democrat. Hiral, take it away.
Hello there, Mr. Trump. Thank you for being here. My question is, you are facing stiff competition from Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. How do you think you will set yourself apart from those two candidates, and how you're going to go and win the general election against, say, Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think I will set myself apart because my policies are better. I'm a much better business person than they are. They've never employed anybody, ever. I think I'm a better leader. I'm going to bring the country together far better than they're going to do, far better than they're going to do. You look at a guy like Ted Cruz, he's a nasty guy. He doesn't have one Republican endorsement from the Senate, and he works with the Senate. Think of it. Hard to believe. Not one senator has endorsed him, and he's a senator. And it's fine to stand on the floor of the Senate for a day or 2 days and have everybody else in the Senate laughing at you, and you do nothing. I mean, he accomplished nothing with that. He went out and he, talked and talked for 2 days. He filibustered for 2 days. He got nothing out of it. I will bring the country together. I will take care of our country. I'm going to make our country rich again, and then I'm going to make our country great again. But we have to become solvent. We have to become rich again before we become great. We owe $19 trillion. We've got to start paying it down. We've got to start balancing budgets.
All right, our final question is from Brenna. Brenna, take it away.
Hello, Mr. Trump. My question for you is, why did you decide to run for president?
My theme is make America great again. I want to make America great again. Why? I want to make it strong because I love the country. I didn't need this, Joe. Believe me, I have a wonderful life. I have a wonderful company. I have a wonderful family.
Is it worth it?
Well, look, it's been certainly interesting. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. I mean, I'm here. I could be someplace else, to be honest with you, okay? I'm being grilled by the two of you. I could be someplace else. But so far, I think it's really been worth it. It's been one of the most interesting experiences, probably the most interesting experience of my life. I've enjoyed it. I think I've done well, and we'll see what happens.
That does it for us here in Charleston.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you to the audience. Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. A great audience.
Donald Trump for taking your questions. Thank you very much. We're going to be back with you live starting at 6 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, live from Charleston here. The Rachel Maddow Show starts right now.
Thank you, guys.